Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Varga, and I'm very excited to serve as the moderator for today's webinar, Mapping Your Power as a Scientist Advocate. I'm the Community Manager and Partnerships Coordinator at the Union of Concerned Scientists, and UCS is very proud to be co-hosting this webinar with SACNAS. SACNAS, as you probably know, is an inclusive organization dedicated to achieving true diversity in STEM, where the field reflects the demographics of the population. As the nation's largest multicultural and multidisciplinary STEM diversity organization in the country, SACNAS creates space where all members, volunteers, staff, and partners feel they belong and can embrace their intersectional identities. The Union of Concerned Scientists is a science advocacy nonprofit dedicated to using rigorous, independent science to solve our planet's most pressing problems. The UCS Science Network is an inclusive community of more than 24,000 scientists, engineers, economists, public health experts, and other experts around the country who are working to educate the public and inform decisions critical to our health, safety, and the environment. The Science Network offers dynamic ways for scientists, including early career scientists, to transform their concerns into action, to defend against attacks on science, and to embrace their roles as scientist constituents and advocates in their own communities. We celebrate Early Career Scientist Month in September to recognize the contributions of STEM students, recent graduates, and postdocs, and highlight specific resources and leadership development opportunities to support them in their science advocacy path. So this webinar will kick off our Early Career Scientist Month celebration. During today's webinar, we will be talking about power mapping, which is an advocacy tool that can help you understand your most effective path for creating change. We'll also hear about asset mapping to help you reflect on the knowledge, technical skills, connections, and affiliations that you have to see how you can tap into these assets for your advocacy or public engagement efforts. So let's get started. Joining us today, we have Tara Padilla-Benavides. She is a new assistant professor at Wesleyan University, and she's the former co-advisor for SACNAS at UMass Medical, and she'll be starting a new SACNAS chapter at Wesleyan University soon. And Hannah Silverfine, the Science Network Outreach Specialist at the Union of Concerned Scientists. Hannah leads the Team-Based Organizing Initiative, a leadership development program that trains scientists to lead advocacy actions in their own community. So we're going to hear from Tara and Hannah, and throughout the presentations, feel free to send questions in the Q&A feature, and then we will get to them towards the end. Please remember to be respectful of everyone in the chat. With that, Tara, I'm going to hand it over to you.
So first of all, I want to thank SACNAS and UCS for the opportunity of sharing a little bit of my experience as early career scientist and a little bit of my pathway throughout these years I have been here in the United States. As Melissa said, I'm currently an assistant professor at Wesleyan University. Before I was in the non-tenure track at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. Before that, I was a postdoc also at UMass and at WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I came to the United States 10 years ago, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my track through these 10 years and how I have been using resources and the help of people that put me in the spot I'm today, right? Which is it's awesome. So first of all, I think I will never be done stressing this out. The most important thing anybody needs is a good mentor, not a mentor, right? We need to find people that will help us to find and make the right decisions throughout our careers, and mostly somebody like me that migrated from, in my case, was Mexico. It's very important to understand the culture, how school works here, how work functions here is very different. So for me, having good mentors was essential. It was part of my major driver on making a good transition. I always knew I wanted to be in academia. My family are academics back home. And I don't know, I just grew up with the idea of the professor and so on. So I knew I wanted to stay in academia. And as my time in the States progressed, I realized I wanted to be here because I know I can make a big impact with my students here, but also I can give back something to my country. And I'm trying to, extend my efforts towards Mexico and other countries. So although it's a little bit challenging and overwhelming, but it's essential. And my mentors knew this from very early, so they helped me to make the right decisions to be there. And I remember one of the first things that came through these ideas of with my mentors was SACNAS. My first advisor, Jose Arguello at WPI, he was the first one commenting about the organization. So I joined very early, reviewing abstracts and trying to contribute somehow to the mission of SACNAS. And then I got more and more involved, and I'll touch base in that in a second. So one of the amazing things of the SACNAS is that you have the website, you can access every single resource they have in this website. Can you guys see my pointer? Excellent. So you go to the website and you can find anything you're looking for. And I guess most of the people attending to this seminar is very aware of the resource, right? But it's beautiful. I found this beautiful because you can find jobs, opportunities. You can have critics of your CV. You can find mentors online that will, talk to you. During the conference, they have this mentor one-on-one, which I participate every single year I go to SACNAS. And these people, if you want, they will keep track with you and they will help you. They will read you your CVs. People that really care for the student well-being, right? And it's fantastic because SACNAS pull people from academia like myself, but also other professionals from industries, policy, and many other universe and science. So that's great because it's not restricted to the people that has an interest to academia, right? And then an amazing thing that happened to me in 2016 was to find the Linton Putri SACNAS Leadership Institute. So this is a workshop that lasts about a week and gives us tools to become better mentors to the next generation, right? And this goes from postdoc to mid-career scientists. And again, it goes to faculty and professionals in other areas, scientific areas. So it's great. So I strongly recommend people to go in and look into these opportunities. Is priceless. Plus, the network that we got from that institute is, I mean, these people became my friends and my brothers and sisters, and we are in touch very frequently. We send messages, we invite each other to seminars, to overseas students. It's just wonderful. It's just amazing what's doing is, at least for my students and myself, right? So I strongly recommend you guys to look into these resources. Another thing that I found great, and this was more when I transitioned into the faculty track at UMass, was the ASBMB society. This organization has several resources, from travel awards to media and awards for students or junior and senior faculty based on scientific accomplishments. But they also have grant writing workshops. And when you're starting your lab and you're going to apply for funding, we don't know how a grant looks like, right? So it's great to have this training in hand. I do have to say that the SLI, the SACNA, the Linton Putri Institute also touch base a little bit on grant writing. So this was another fantastic tool I was lucky to have access to. I went to this workshop and you get all the insights of what you need to do for NSF and NIH applications. And I mean, I've been actively writing grants since 2016, 2017, getting close, right? But again, having these insights of how to do a grant is essential. And for somebody like me that comes from abroad, it's priceless, because I didn't even know what was the NIH when I moved into the United States, right? So this was great. And the sooner you get into this type of training, you will develop faster your research program. And another thing, after I more or less established the lab, got students and so on, I have encouraged them to apply to this type of awards. all, like as I said, for trainees. And I was very lucky to have a student, Shalina Gordon, that was recipient of the Marion Suar Distinguished Scholarship a couple of years ago. And that was based on her, of course, academic accomplishments and her research experience in my lab. So it's amazing because this doesn't stay at the faculty level in my case. It went towards my student. And of course, I'm gonna keep doing this with the new generations I have. Then we have more opportunities at the AAAS, I'm sorry, regarding fellowships. You can, this society has an amazing program for policy for all people interested in going more into politics. Being a policy fellow from the AAS is a great honor, and it's a great program where I met a couple of folks that were recipients, and they are on their track to, you know, into the Senate or who knows, right? Big places in politics. So they have so many other awards and programs that you should know and use for yourself, because you are developing not only a research program, you are growing as a person, and whatever you do for yourself is going to translate in your students. So all these resources are there. I mean, you just Google it and you find these websites. It's not that hard to find them, right? Then what do we do for finding a job, right? I mean, I'm a senior postdoc. What I'm gonna do? What I'm gonna find a job? And a couple of my friends at UMass often ask me, how did you start looking, right? Where do I find my first job at? And one of the best resources I found when I was in my search was the Science Career website. So this is from Science Magazine, again from the AAAS. I'm sorry for the accent. And in this website, you just go in, you create a profile based on your interest, and you can get notification daily, weekly, monthly, and everything is gonna that Science Career is gonna send you is tailored to your particular interest. And in this site, you can find jobs that are not only related to academia. I've seen things associated to industry and some policy ones as well. So this is quite a diverse website. And it's very user friendly. You can upload your CV. They also have some sort of workshops and so on once you dig in the website. So keep this website in mind. Is very good and useful. Another one, but this one is more towards an academic career. It's Higher Ed Jobs. I absolutely love this website. Again, my search was tailored to be an academia, right, a professor. So this website was amazing because it's very thorough, and it goes the span on from community college to R01 institution is huge, right? You can see pretty much everything that's out there. And again, you can create your account and tailor your selections, and you will get this feedback of opportunities available. And all the instructions on how to do these applications are right there in both sites. Actually, this is for both sides. So I strongly encourage you guys to look at these two sites at first, because everything's gonna be right there. Then something very important. It doesn't matter if it's academia or if policy, industry, whatever. You need to have your LinkedIn up to date. Everybody's looking, right? This is like Hollywood. One of my mentors told me that treat your LinkedIn as it's the New York Times, and like if you are in Hollywood. You are showing your best in these social media domains. Do your best. Put some effort on working on what information you put here. Your publications, your poster presentations, everything counts when you are looking for a job or a connection. I found, not for my personal experience, but from somebody else's, that LinkedIn was excellent for finding industry jobs. Most of my friends in companies now found them through this tool. So it's very important that you grow your network. Don't be shy. If you have a third connection from a person at a company that you know they have an opening, and this person is related to one of your friends or connections in LinkedIn, reach out to them, ask, introduce yourself. You have to put your name out there. Nobody's gonna come to look for your name. You put your name. Don't be shy. Go for it. And I've seen that some people got their jobs using that assertive strategy, let's say. So yeah, LinkedIn is amazing. I mean, I have a formal job. I want to keep my job forever. I love this place. I love Wesleyan. But I still keep it open because, you know, this is one of the entrance of who is Tere Padilla, right? What is this lady doing? So this is kind of a live CV and advertising for my lab, for my research, for my students, and so on. So use it. It's an amazing tool. Then talking a little bit about funding, right? Either you're an undergrad, a grad student, a postdoc, there's so many resources out there to get funded. And that is one of the most important things a trainee has to have. I know, and I have seen so many people that got funded that the rest of the career pathway is being so much easier compared to those that we didn't got funded earlier, right? In my case, I didn't got funded because number one, I didn't really know. I never asked, and my visa and I don't know all these migration issues, I wasn't very aware on how to play with that. I wish I would have asked more questions in that regard, 6 years ago. But I did have some restrictions to apply for this funding, right? You have to be a citizen or a green card holder. I became green card holder very late. That was bad, but it was, I mean, I couldn't do it earlier. That was my point. But for all those folks that can apply for these programs, it's a no-brainer. The moment you define a project, go for it. Because it's going to take time. You're not going to get funded the first time, that's for sure. It's going to be frustrating, sad. You're going to read the reviews and you're going to be very depressed. That's a fact. That's science. That's what we do. But you stand up and you do it again. And guess what? Maybe next year we're funded, right? And that's excellent. So be consistent and be resilient and systematic, looking for funding opportunities. And again, don't be shy. Talk to your mentor. Do we have a reasonable project that can go towards this or that call for applications? And go for it. Ask. Most of your mentors will say, like, yeah, oh, yeah, let's do that, right? Sometimes we don't think that there's an opportunity out there for a student. But if you come and bring that to my attention, I'm going to say, like, dude, I love you. Go for it. So keep this in mind and take the initiative to bring these ideas to your professors. It's amazing. I love when my students come with ideas. It's just like, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, why not, right? Worst case scenario is a no, but we try. And that's Tere. I always try. Who cares what happens? If you don't try, you don't get anything anyway. So just try. Then there's much more organizations I could speak about. For reasons of time, and I think I'm getting close to the end of my time. I'm close to wrap up, but other organizations is the Association for Women in Science. Again, they have great tools for female advocacy and policy, so take a look into these websites as well. They do workshops, seminars, and so on. The NIH has amazing programs for trainees outside the NIH and also those that get into the institute. So just browse their websites. Everything's so accessible. They want you to get funded and they want you to train well. This is for the well of the country. And if you are doing health, of course, for the good of the world, right? So go and do it. It's easy. A couple of other things I just wanted to touch base really quickly is how we, as early career scientists or students, how can we help to make these transitions from the hidden science, the professor that's only finding stuff and nobody knows, nobody in the real world knows what's happening in the lab, right? And then science becomes disconnected of the public interest because the public doesn't know what's happening in the labs. And this is essential, it's fundamental, and I think it's being very clear these times of coronavirus, right? Science became so important in one day. So how do we, us as junior people, as young trainees, how do we help to make this better? So first of all, don't be shy, go out and talk to the community. Something we did and I loved with the SAGNAS chapter at UMass Med was to establish a series of outreach events. We have grad students, MD students, faculty, staff, everybody that wanted to be with us, going out to start mentoring programs We start building some more networks with local schools. We organize special events at UMass to bring people in so they could see what was happening at our labs. And I'm very happy, if you guys want, shoot me an email, and I'm very happy to tell you a lot more than I can in this 1 minute I have about how to establish these outreach programs. The key is don't be shy, be creative, think outside the box, and get out there. You guys have better knowledge of technology than I have. I'm getting old. You guys know better than I do. Use those resources to appeal, attract young people, and also the parents, the uncles, people that don't care, and show what you do. What are you learning in school? Create a blog and talk about your class. Things as simple as that will make people read a bit of what's happening in schools, in the labs, on the science. And it's just to change, to create that little atmosphere of science is accessible to everybody. It's not because I'm super smart. I mean, yes, we are all smart. Like, you have to be smart, right? But like everybody can do science, and that's the sense we have to imprint in society. It's important that people believe in science. This is a very quick advertising and something I wanted to show. This is an outreach activity I've been engaged since the beginning of the year with some folks in Mexico. We have this international seminar that, of course, thanks to coronavirus, we do by Zoom, but it's great because we can have speakers from all over the world coming to our seminars. We have people coming with very diverse topics to speak to our groups in Mexico and here in the States. We have audience from all the country and several other countries. This is a seminar happening on Friday. You guys are welcome to come. This is the Zoom and the password if you guys care to do it. And if not, just shoot me an email and I can put you in the list and invite you. And I'm always looking for speakers for this thing. So whoever wants to share their science, shoot me an email, and it would be great to have you on board in our network. This is growing like crazy, slowly, but this is growing a lot. And that's exactly what we have to do. Bring our science to as many people as we can. And lucky for us, these talks and other activities are going now into the lay audience, the general public. So it's not easy, it's time consuming, but it's totally worth it. So keep that in mind. Why is this important? I love this sentence from an article published in, oh, sorry, I just blow my last slide. From Science Magazine, that we have been reminded that we can't assume that everyone just gets that science is an important endeavor. We need to reach out, build relationship, communicate our science, and demonstrate why it's so vitally important. Coronavirus made it evident, but it's our job to keep it up. There's this classic view from many people that the scientist is locked in their office and they don't talk. And that's still somehow true, and that's very sad. Some people believe that reaching out to society is not worth it, it's a waste of time. People rather writing grants than going out and give a talk to a high school. We have to change that. The sooner we start bringing people into science, into the importance of our work, the better it's going to grow on them, and they are going to be able to translate to other people in their houses or friends or whatsoever. It's our job to make science accessible. We are doing the work. Who else is going to share the work better than us? We are the experts, right? It's our job to make it accessible. So what do? How can we do this? We have to commit. And yes, it takes some time and effort, but it's worth it. And I just want to wrap up with this site. I just get to learn because I have a 6-year-old girl. She loves Dr. Seuss. But this is absolutely true. Unless somebody like you or us care a whole awful lot, nothing is going to be better. It's not going to change. We have to change it. And with that, I want to finish. And again, thanks, Sagnas and USC for the opportunity of sharing this little speech with you. I'm sorry I took too long. I love talking. Just shoot me an email if you want to continue the conversation. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And while we wait for Hannah to get her slides loaded up, I just want to thank you, Tara, for the great reminder of what all of these networks and societies and opportunities can offer early career scientists. They want to help you. And you teed this up so well as saying, like, it's so important that you commit, and reach out to advocate with the public and decision makers and the media. And Hannah's going to talk more about how to do that effectively and how to know where to start. So take it away, Hannah.
Great, thanks so much for having me here. I'm excited to talk today a little bit about what it means to be a change maker as a scientist and how do you use a tool to think about building out strategic engagement. And so some of the questions and framework that I'll share are really meant to help you think about your strengths and your assets within limited time and energy that you have available. And that's a tool that you can use for any aspect of your life. If you think about moments when you've seen successful change being made, whether that's your job or at your university or in your personal life, there's always a problem at hand, and then there's a goal to address that problem. And then there's a person or group who needs to make the change, who can actually work on that problem, and then someone has to figure out a way to get them to act on that. So to be able to understand the right steps to get to that change, it's really important to take the time to understand the problem itself. What is the depth of the danger if that problem continues on? Who are the communities that are most impacted or affected by that problem? What's the history and the narrative around the issue? And also, who is benefiting from the status quo if things don't change? So as you move forward thinking through your role, it's important to understand why this problem matters to address, which will help you frame it as you bring others into making the change with you. As scientists, it's important to take a moment to think about the history of science as we advocate for change. Science itself is a human endeavor, so it takes place within a historical, social, and political context. And because of this, it can reflect the biases and power structures that are prevalent in society at any given time. And so I want to acknowledge that scientists have sometimes exploited or excluded marginalized groups in their pursuit of knowledge. And we believe that whenever possible, research should really be informed by and conducted in partnership with communities that have a stake in the outcome. This increases the possibility of that research and policy solutions informed by that research to alleviate existing inequities rather than creating additional harm. Advocacy itself is defined as the act or process of supporting a cause or proposal. So essentially, advocacy is just about advancing change towards a specific goal. When we think about the need for science advocacy, at UCS we use the phrase that data and research don't speak for themselves. Only people can speak for science. And that brings us back to the understanding that people come with their own values and assumptions and biases. And so as you're engaging in advocacy and making a difference in the world, we have to keep in mind the idea that science isn't partisan, but it is political. And that any decisions that are being made, such as research or funding or data, are related to the distribution of power and what we all bring to the world. And so when we think about how we can create change, holding the lens of power allows us to understand and how to shift power at a local level or on large scales. In your role as a scientist and constituent, you have your own special mix of talents that you bring to advocacy efforts. Your research itself can be used to inform policy decisions grounded in data and help protect people and the environment. If your research itself is not directly connected to the policies or decisions you want to change, then your skills as a researcher are also really valuable to policymakers, to community groups, and to other people who are working to affect change. Your connections, as Terry mentioned, your network that you're building, whether that's professional or community groups or other scholars, is also incredibly useful to the change that you're trying to make. And then the question at hand is, how do you use all those skills that you have? Depending on your experiences and your interests, you can think about if you want to leverage your expertise to speak to the media, perhaps writing an op-ed. You could also use your connections to partner with community groups and try and educate and advocate with the public. Or you can bring your research to a policymaker and advocate for specific science funding or policy decisions. Trying to decide where to start is always the hardest part. I like to think about your work in two buckets. As a scientist, you can think about if there's a way for you to, one, fill a gap in resources needed in your community, or two, how you can add to the existing voices who have been fighting to change the issue that you care about. And as you think about what's happening in your city or your state, you can take a step back and think really big picture. What needs to change right now? That problem that we know if it continues as status quo will continue to harm. And so where is that change made that will prevent that harm? Who can help make that change happen? Who else is impacted by the issue? And who might already be working on that issue that you can join in their fight? Power mapping is a framework for getting to the root of issues and for breaking these big problems in our society into much smaller steps. So when you think about advocacy specifically, there are two terms that help you think about how to advance change. One is identifying a target, and the second is an ask. A target is going to be one person who can implement or affect the change that you want to see. So for example, if you're working on water quality issues, your target might be your state senator who you know will introduce a new bill. Or your target could be the director of the Health Policy Commission who's just updating the water quality regulations. Then the ask will be the specific policy or agreement that you want changed that you know your target has influence over. So the senator, that could be passing the bill, or for the Health Policy Commission, that's using sound science in their regulations update. And with this power mapping, it's all about understanding who is influencing that decision maker and how do you get them to say yes to the ask. So as a brief exercise, take a minute to think about a moment that you helped influence change. This could be passing a policy, getting funding for a project, maybe even just convincing a family member to do something. How did you influence change? And so think about who you were trying to convince. That was your target. What you wanted them to do. That's your ask. Did anyone else help you with this? Did you use other resources? And then were you successful? Why or why not? We'll just take a minute to think about time you, again, helped influence change. Can be in your personal life, you made something happen, or professional life. Who was the person that you had to convince? What's the ask? What did you want them to do? What resources did you use, and were you successful? Just take a minute to think. You can write it down, or you can just reflect on your own. And we'll dive into this more later, but it helps show that everyone has something that they've tried to influence in their life. There are always things that we're trying to change, and understanding who has the power to make that change happen, whether it's something like you want your family to go on vacation together and you know that your mom really likes warm weather and your dad likes cold weather, but who ultimately is going to book the tickets. There's something like that at the small scale, or big picture, something like who is going to help update that water quality standard in your city or town. Understanding who has the power there will help you know what strategies you need to get to the outcome you want, and allow you to understand who else you need to enlist to help you to get to that effective change. Because your target is going to be just one person, you get to put on your research hat, which I know we all have as scientists, and learn about who has that influence over them. If your target is an elected official, what associations are they a part of? Where do they go to school? Do they belong to a church? Thinking about who they're connected to in their community and what matters to them will help you understand what strategies you're going to take on in order to get them to join you in saying yes to the ask that you want. Also, if you pick a popular target, such as an elected official, someone who's well known, there may be others who have already done research about this. And so searching organizations who work on relevant issues allows you to see what research there already is out there. You can either reach out to them online or even call another group, and you might find yourself another ally in your efforts as you're talking with them about what that person cares about, what has prevented them from saying yes or no in the past on that issue. When you're doing your research, you also want to pay extra attention to what other community members think about this. Understanding the history of an issue in your city or town will give you context for the ask that you're making. So for example, if you and others were working to pass a bill and your senator is the target, you might do some research about that bill and how people in your community have worked on water quality before. And then you might find out that other community members don't believe that that specific bill goes far enough to protect people from the contaminants in the public water supply. And so by learning that, you know that you need to reconsider the ask that you're making and work with those other community members to learn more about how you can leverage your role as a scientist in that bigger fight. Once you've gathered information about your target, what they care about, and who else you need to involve in your efforts, you can start to decide what strategies make sense to bring attention to the issue. So if your elected officials care a lot about public opinion, then you might want to pay attention to how you can keep that topic in public conversations. This could be public meetings, it can be on social media, it could be in written media like op-eds, but once you've identified where you want to bring that topic to attention, you can enlist others to help amplify it over time as well. This box shows some of the tactics that are common among advocacy efforts, but you don't need to use them all to be effective. Sometimes just choosing an outlet that you have access to is a great place to start, or choosing something that you feel comfortable with or something that you want to learn more about. Just as power mapping helps you understand the sphere of influence you have over a specific target, asset mapping helps you understand the resources and opportunities that exist in your own life. Thinking through the different assets that you have allows you to prioritize your work and the strategies the best fit of who you are as an advocate in this moment. So you can start with what issues interest you. There are many problems in the world and we cannot all work on all of them. And I'm heartened to know that I'm working on one little issue, but there are other people who are working on all of their corners of the world too. And together, that's how we advance broader social change. So don't feel like you have to do everything. Just think about what you're passionate about. Do you want to work generally on climate change, or is there something really specific that you care about? And do you want to hone in just on that? Is there a type of skill that you really enjoy using and that you want to share with others? And how far outside of your area of expertise are you willing to go? You can also think about how frequently you can offer support. Based on what you know today, are you able to commit to something longer term, or are you really just looking for things that are shorter term, concentrated efforts, but you're really happy to help when that comes up? Lastly, it's great to consider what activities fit you best. So do you want to spend time on technical documents, or would you rather connect with peers? Understanding all of those things allows you to engage in advocacy in a way that feels good to you and makes a really important impact. And we're going to take about 10 minutes to do a little activity on our own. This this chart shows a variety of different areas to reflect on what you have as assets or resources in your life. There are some that show internal strengths, such as skills or expertise, or the characteristics that you bring. So, for example, if you're someone that really enjoys spending time with people, you're people-centric, or if you're someone who's really focused or really flexible, all of those things are considered strengths and help you in your charting out of where you want to advocate. Externally, you can think a little bit about who you're connected to, both in your professional networks, personal life, media, policymakers. And then I also left a column blank for other. What are other things that come to mind to you as your assets and strengths? Okay, great. Well, thanks for taking the time to practice a little bit. And as Melissa said, if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll have some time for Terry and I to answer them. And I'm also available to discuss this activity and others more at another time. We shared a lot about how do you make change broadly, how do you narrow in on an issue, how do you think about some of the skills you have, what needs to happen in your community. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to do is to just prioritize a little bit about how you lead with your strengths. And remember that none of us can do all of it. Starting somewhere is better than starting nowhere. And so as you think about how to engage sustainably in activism, it's great to remember that you already have a lot of skills and respect in the world as scientists. Being part of the scientific community is its own strength. And so understanding what your goals are for how you want to use your skills and knowledge, or a type of advocacy you've always wanted to explore, gives you a way to just take a next step and plug into one issue, starting with from your role as a scientist, to offer the skills that you have, and then learn about how that works and if that fit is a good fit for you or if you want to try something else. Also, when we engage in advocacy, it's good to remember that there are different levels of access to different types of advocacy depending on where you come from, because there are very real barriers at the system level that exist because of racism or economic injustice. So if you have privilege or access to different types of advocacy, make sure to remember how you can really use that privilege and think about sharing responsibility and involvement. And remember that you don't have to always be at the forefront of different types of actions. Learning from and partnering with community groups is a really essential way to make sure that we're amplifying voices of people most impacted in the cities or towns that we're living in, and also creating a broader coalition to fight for key issues. Lastly, I want to make a plug for taking care of yourself. I know that's a really basic thought, but it really is important as we're engaging in very hard fights around advocacy. Sometimes it's a very long fight that we can find ourselves in. Make sure to step away and recharge and know that we're all in it for the long game. So celebrate the work that you're doing, whether or not you have a win on a policy issue. Know that you're still fighting for something really important, and make sure to leave time to celebrate things and enjoy the company of others in your life, and take breaths as you're engaging in these hard things. Power mapping itself is really just a language to identify, again, how we influence decision makers and the power that each of us and our communities bring to making change in the world. We hope that you can use this tool to think about redistributing power and centering the concerns of people most impacted by different issues, and really understanding our unique roles as individuals to affect change. So after this webinar, I'd encourage you to research those issues that you care about, understand who else is working on them, connect with other people in your community, and try out different options, see what sticks, and just keep going. Lastly, feel free to stay in touch with me and Melissa and others at UCS by Twitter, email, or website. We're here to help as we all engage in trying to be change makers as scientists.
Thanks, Hannah. I really appreciated seeing how some of the resources that Tara mentioned you then built off of as not just professional development resources, but opportunities to bring them in as resources for engaging in policy advocacy. Excellent. So, and something that you touched on towards the end came up in one of the questions that we got. I wanted to see if you wanted to build off of it. It's a question from Danny in Houston. How do you maintain your motivation in advocacy and avoid burning out? And then I also want to see if Tara has anything to add about how to avoid burnout in academia, because that's real too.
Absolutely. I would say it depends on each person, but really remembering that everyone deserves rest. And it's really important to prioritize rest and rejuvenation, because we're all our best selves when we're balanced and when we find ways to engage meaningfully, but we also find ways to reflect and recharge. So for me, that looks like going on runs and spending time with my friends and cooking vegetables. But for other people, it might look like something more active. Everyone's balance looks different, but just remember that it's okay to say no to things. And sometimes saying no actually allows you to go deeper into the things that you're doing and say yes to things that have more of an impact later on.
Yeah, I agree with Hannah. Learning to say no is one of the best and most important features to avoid burnout, right? I think one of the most challenging things is to learn how to time manage properly when you are transitioning, for instance, to prioritize what's more important to whatever stage of your career is, right? So I think, for instance, in my undergrads, right, they love to come to the lab, and I love having them, and we would love to get a paper published out, and that would be great. But you need to get the GPA up, right? So prioritize, and maybe you have to decrease your hours in the lab. That's okay. The science is going to be there. You're going to be able to come and do that eventually. You have to focus on what's the priority goal, and as Hannah said, every person is different, right? But if you don't know how to do this, just talk to your mentors again, to your friends, right? To your peers. How your peers are managing these situations is also sometimes important. But I think, I mean, I always found some assistance on mentors on discerning what was more important and prioritizing. We cannot do all, as Hannah said. You can't. It's impossible. You also have a life, a family, and that's much more important, right? Health. You have to take care of yourself and your family before anything else. That's my opinion, right? Maybe some people don't like that, but I do like that. um, so yeah, I think it's just organizing your time, not putting yourself into too many places at the same time, and yes, say no. It's okay. We cannot please everybody.
Oof, easier said than done, but yes, I totally agree. Another question, which I think is spot on. This person said, I still find it embarrassing to be honest about my expertise, experience, and influence, possibly because of imposter syndrome. Are there exercises where maybe a PI group might identify the strengths of their collaborators? Maybe I'll go to Tara and then Hannah. Have either of you seen something like that work?
So in my particular case, these kind of things I'd rather to handling in more into a one-on-one meetings. So some people may feel exposed or threatened if, you know, sensitive areas are discussed with more people. So in my case, I always try to be very blunt, and in like when I'm feeling imposter syndrome, right? I would go to my mentors and say, I think I'm doing this wrong because of this and that, and they'll bring you down to earth, right? It's good. It's good to have that counseling, and the people you work with, your supervisors, they know you. They will have a better answer to your performance than you do, right? It's so in my particular case, I'd rather handling this more in a confidential setup, just to make people feel safe. But that's again, that's the Padilla.
Yeah, I would just add, it probably depends on your group, right? Similarly, if you have a PI in a research group that you feel like has that trust that you and everyone like is able to share things confidentially and supportively, then it could be a great exercise or a good resource to talk through together. What does it mean to really lift up the expertise that we have and champion each other and our work and our strengths? But yeah, if you don't feel like that's a good place to do that, safely, then you can also consider what other groups exist in your life, where you can practice with friends, or you could practice with advocacy or volunteer groups. I find that in every area of life, there are folks who experience imposter syndrome, and people who want to practice like what it really means to step into their full potential. And so I think thinking about who in your life you trust and who in your life you could ask, hey, can we like practice doing a little elevator pitch, like a 1 minute talking about what I bring to the table, who am I, what is my expertise. I find that's a good way in my life when I'm like about to present, for example, if I need to talk about my expertise, sometimes I'll talk to a friend or family member beforehand, and they remind me all of the things that I forget I have as my own expertise. So sometimes talking to people in your life can be a good mirror to understand the really unique things that you bring, no matter what letters you have after your name or what experiences you think you have.
We are running short on time, so I wanted to ask one final question. Maybe there's a way that we can answer some of these questions afterwards because they're all so important. But Brandon S. asks, any tips for undergraduates who don't have much in terms of advocacy assets or power yet, but want to grow in those aspects? Hannah and then Tara.
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, everyone has power. It's just about thinking about who you know and what your relationship is to the issue at hand. So if you're an undergraduate and there's something happening on campus or in your city, you still are a really valued member of the community. So you have a voice to bring to any conversation that is happening. A good way to practice can be joining a group where undergrads often have funding on campus for different student groups where you can bring speakers and trainings. And so I know I gained a lot of skills in undergrad by participating in trainings where I learned about how do I meet with elected officials or what it meant to partner with community groups and things like that. So yeah, learning about what resources are available on campus is a great place to start.
Yeah, I will just follow up on that. Having any activity participation with school associations is the best way to start. You can make changes and progress within your school without noticing it, right? Just like I just thinking when we started the SACNAS chapter at UMass, it was a little thing. We were just 5 or 6, you know, and of course most of them, well, these guys were grad students, right? It was a medical school, but it translates, right? And suddenly the chapter started growing, and our outreach went huge. We have so many, well, I'm sorry, recent transition. uh, so many connections that were created in the community just by starting local, right? And talk to your professors. Maybe they know what kind of association may need your help based in your strengths, right? What you can bring to the table, what are new ideas? And I'm gonna go back to my think outside the box. How can you change or make something better of something that's already existing? Right? You don't need to create a new whole world. Maybe you can just improve it and post it to a different level, right? But like now that I'm working here at Wesleyan with the new SACNAS chapter, I'm talking to a lot of faculty and a lot of students, and I'm like, wow, like excellent, right? And the people come to with ideas, and that's what enrich the whole system, right? So it's not that you don't have the expertise or anything. It's just don't be shy and try it, right? Just speak up. You want to do this, find the right channel to do so. And there's all the schools have so many organizations that you can tag along.
Yes, there's no excuse. Get started right away. Just take the first step. All right, well, thank you so much, Tara and Hannah. I just want to plug a few final upcoming opportunities. I wanted to highlight the upcoming National Diversity in STEM virtual conference coming up October 19th through the 24th. There's still time to register. You can check it out at 2020sacnas.org. You'll be able to hear from me and some of my colleagues at UCS in the virtual exhibit hall and giving workshops and scientific presentations. So we hope to see you there. And then the next webinar from SACNAS is coming up next week, September 9th, SACNAS Insights to Success, Career Paths Outside of Academia. So, you know, we heard a lot about Tara's path today. If that sounded really scary to you, maybe tune in next week and learn about a different path that you could take. And you can check that out at sacnas.org. And to access more SACNAS webinars, become a member, or learn more about their community, you can check out their website. And don't forget to follow the Science Network on Twitter at SciNetUCS for more Early Career Scientist Month opportunities. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.